All right, welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at relationships and more specifically gift giving etiquette in relationships. So our source material is this really interesting Reddit post from the Am I the A-hole subreddit, that place where people go to get judged by the internet. And essentially this husband is wondering if he's overreacting to some gifts that his wife has been receiving from her male best friend. And these gifts are very personal. We're talking about a butt plug for her birthday
Yeah.
and red thong lingerie for Valentine's Day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so right off the bat, I can see some eyebrows raising out there. Like, what do you make of this? Is it just harmless fun between friends or...
Yeah, is there something more going on?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So to unpack this whole situation, let's start with the husband's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
He says he's not a jealous guy. He's cool with his wife having male friends, but that is a big... But he did find the whole butt plug thing a little bit unexpected.
Yeah, I can imagine it.
Right. He did mention it to his wife, suggesting that maybe those kinds of gifts should stay within their marriage. But he also admitted to kind of laughing it off with her seeing the humor in it. So at that point, maybe not a huge deal.
Yeah, it sounds like he tried to address it lightheartedly.
Exactly. But do you think that maybe that initial reaction kind of set a precedent? Like by not setting a firmer boundary right then and there, was he inadvertently giving the friend a green light?
That's a good question, because sometimes even if we don't explicitly condone something, our silence or lack of a strong reaction can be interpreted as acceptance.
Right, and that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
Because fast forward to Valentine's Day, and the friend decides to up the ante with the lingerie gift. The husband, meanwhile, got his wife flowers, classic romantic gesture. But then he finds out about the lingerie, and understandably, he's pretty irritated.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty bold move from the friend, especially after the butt plug incident.
Exactly. So he turns to the Reddit community with a simple question. Am I overreacting, or is this weird? And let me tell you, the internet did not disappoint. The comments section just exploded with opinions.
Oh, I bet.
We've got people cracking jokes like, well, if he isn't gay, you've got a problem. Others are more analytical, pointing out that the friend is definitely crossing a line.
Especially with the Valentine's Day gift.
Right. But what really stood out to me was just how many people believe that this friend is romantically interested in the wife. They see these gifts, particularly the lingerie, as a not-so-subtle way of expressing those feelings.
Yeah, you can't really ignore the symbolism there.
Right. It's hard not to read into it. And it makes you wonder, is the friend oblivious to the implications of these gifts? Or is he intentionally trying to create a wedge in this marriage?
That's a really tough one to answer without knowing more about their dynamic. But it definitely raises some red flags.
Absolutely. And this is where the psychology of gift giving comes into play, right? Gifts can be incredibly loaded. They can express love, gratitude, obligation, or even manipulation. So when you have a gift like lingerie, which is so closely tied to sexuality and romance, it's hard not to question the giver's intentions. What do you think?
Well, I think it's definitely worth considering the context of the relationship, the history between these people, and any other potential clues that might shed light on the situation.
Right, because sometimes a gift is just a gift, but other times it can be a sign of something much deeper. Now, here's where the plot thickens. In an update to his post, the husband reveals that he finally talked to his wife about it, and her explanation is that the friend is just trying to spice up their sex life.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she even told him that they used the butt plug together.
So according to her, it's all harmless fun intended to benefit their marriage.
Exactly. But does that change things, knowing that they actually used the gift together? Does it shift your perspective of the situation at all?
Well, it certainly adds another layer of complexity. Because now we have to consider whether this is truly a consensual and mutually beneficial arrangement between all three parties.
Right, because the Reddit commenters were incredibly skeptical. A lot of people flat out refused to buy the whole spicing things up explanation. They called it a classic case of gaslighting or even emotional manipulation.
Yeah, I can see why people would be hesitant to believe that. It's a pretty unconventional situation, to say the least.
It definitely is. But let's try to dig a little deeper here. Even if we take the wife's explanation at face value, there are still some pretty thorny issues to consider. I mean, even if they are using the gifts together, is it really healthy for someone outside the marriage to be so intimately involved in their sex life?
That's a great point. It seems like it blurs the lines in a way that could lead to problems down the road.
Exactly. And it almost feels like the friend is inserting himself into their intimacy, doesn't it? Which raises questions about the power dynamics in their friendship.
Absolutely, and it makes you wonder about the wife's role in all of this. Is she unknowingly allowing this dynamic to play out? Is she flattered by the attention, or is there something more going on beneath the surface?
Right. Because, let's be honest, her acceptance of these gifts plays a significant role in this whole situation. Why isn't she setting stronger boundaries with her friend? What do you think that says about her level of commitment to her husband and the marriage itself?
That's a really important question and one that we'll need to explore further as we delve deeper into this case. But I think it's safe to say that there are definitely some red flags here that warrant further examination.
Absolutely. And we'll do just that in the next part of our deep dive. So stay tuned. So we're back and we're picking up right where we left off with this Reddit post that's just really got us thinking.
Yeah.
About the husband, the wife, and the male best friend with the questionable gifts.
Yeah, it's a situation that really makes you question the boundaries of friendship and marriage.
It really does. And remember, we were talking about the wife's acceptance of those gifts, the butt plug and the lingerie.
Yeah.
It's a big red flag for a lot of the Reddit commenters.
Oh, absolutely. And I think rightfully so. It kind of suggests a lack of respect for her husband and the marriage itself.
Right. Like, why isn't she setting stronger boundaries with her friend? What do you think that says about her commitment to the relationship?
Well, it's hard to say for sure without knowing more about their dynamic, but it definitely raises some concerns.
It does. And it's not just the Reddit guys who are picking up on this. A lot of the women in the comments are sharing their own experiences with male friends
Yeah.
who turned out to have ulterior motives.
Yeah, that's a common theme that comes up in these kinds of situations. Sometimes those supposedly platonic friendships can be fraught with hidden agendas.
Especially when one person is married.
Right. It's a good reminder to be mindful of the boundaries we set in our relationships and to be aware of the potential for things to cross the line, even if it starts out unintentionally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what can we learn from all of this? What are the key takeaways from this deep dive into the world of relationships and questionable gift giving?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is the importance of open and honest communication in any relationship. If something makes you uncomfortable, whether it's a gift from a friend or a comment from a colleague, you need to address it with your partner directly.
Right. Don't let those feelings fester inside. And don't assume they can read your mind.
Exactly. Because communication is key in any healthy relationship. It prevents those little misunderstandings from snowballing into major issues down the road.
So true. And building on that, I think it's equally important to be mindful of the boundaries you set, especially in opposite-sex friendships. I mean, this doesn't mean you can't have close friends of the opposite gender, but it's crucial to be aware of how things can be perceived, particularly when one person is in a committed relationship.
Right. It's about respecting your partner and making sure your actions don't send the wrong message. Because sometimes even seemingly innocent gestures can be misinterpreted or create unnecessary tension.
Exactly. And finally, I think this whole situation serves as a reminder that we should pay attention to the psychology of gift giving. Gifts can be a powerful way of expressing feelings, but those feelings aren't always positive. They can be manipulative, controlling, or even aggressive.
That's a really good point. It's important to consider the types of gifts people give you, especially from those you're close to. They might be trying to tell you something even if they're not aware of it themselves.
Exactly. And if a gift makes you uncomfortable, it's better to address it head on than to let it create a rift in your relationship or allow an unhealthy dynamic to take root.
I agree those difficult conversations can be the most illuminating. They can help you understand yourself, your partner, and the dynamics of your relationship on a deeper level.
Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. This whole Reddit post is like a case study in communication boundaries and maybe even a bit of self-deception. It forces us to hold up a mirror to our own relationships and ask, what would I do in this situation?
That's a really powerful question to consider. Have you ever encountered a similar dilemma in your own life? A gift that felt inappropriate, a friend who overstepped a boundary? How
Yeah.
could you handle it?
Yeah, I think we've all been there at some point. It's not always easy to navigate those tricky situations.
It's not, and that's why it's so important to talk about these things,
Yeah.
to share our experiences and learn from each other. Because sometimes just knowing that you're not alone in these struggles can be incredibly validating.
I completely agree, and that's what we're trying to do here on the deep dive, to create a space where we can have these open and honest conversations about the complexities of human relationships.
Right, and to remind ourselves that there's no one right answer to these questions. It's all about figuring out what works best for you and your partner.
And about being willing to have those tough conversations even when they're uncomfortable.
Absolutely. So let's keep this conversation going. What are your thoughts on this whole situation? What advice would you give to someone who might be facing a similar dilemma in their own life? It's like this whole deep dive has been a reminder that even simple things like giving a gift can be so complicated. It can mean different things, and people might misunderstand. And it reminds us that relationships change all the time. What's okay at one point might not be okay later.
Yeah,
It's about noticing those changes and talking about things when you need to.
definitely.
And sometimes you have to realize that not all relationships are forever.
Mm-hmm.
Even though the wife explained things, a lot of people on Reddit and maybe even us feel like this marriage might be in trouble.
That's a good point. Even though she tried to make it sound okay, there's a problem with power and boundaries in their relationship.
Right.
And that can be really hard to fix.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the damage is already done. Like maybe they don't even realize it yet.
It's possible.
It makes you think that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away from a relationship that isn't good for you anymore.
Wow, that's deep.
It is.
Yeah.
But that's what these deep dives are all about, right? We take something that seems simple and look at all the different sides of it. We find the hidden stuff, and we end up with more questions and answers.
I like that.
And hopefully we understand people a little bit better.
Definitely.
So what are your final thoughts on all of this? What advice would you give to someone who's going through something similar?
I think the most important thing is to trust your gut. If a gift or something your friend does feels wrong, don't ignore it. Talk to your partner, be honest about how you feel, and work together to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Because you should be in a relationship where you feel respected, valued, and safe. And if you don't feel those things, maybe it's time to think about whether the relationship is right for you.
That's a great point to end on. Trust your gut talk openly and put your own well-being first.
Yeah.
I think that's something we can all learn from this deep dive.
For sure.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of relationships. They can be messy, but they're always fascinating. If you like this deep dive, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this episode with your friends. The more we talk about these things, the more we learn and grow and help each other through all the complicated parts of life and love. We'll see you next time for another deep dive. Who knows what we'll uncover next? Until then, take care and always trust your gut.